Afternoon, everybody. Dr. John Michael Salvato, your organic living and peak performance coach. And today on the Peak Performance Blueprint, our Mindshift Mastery program, we are going to be talking about wisdom and silence. And it's a topic I'm very happy to share with you. I'm going to make this screen go away. There we go. And so welcome. You know, on our Mindshift Mastery program, every single day we choose one area of mindset in which we can make a small shift and then impact positively other areas of our lives as a result of that mind shift. And, you know, today we're talking about silence and wisdom. We're talking about, you know, wisdom is enough, is saying enough to prove your point, not to prove your existence. And, you know, so often we spend a lot of time trying to fill those spaces of silence in a conversation, those spaces of silence in our lives with words, whether those are in a conversation with somebody else or just times when we're just allowing ourselves some me time, being present to one another, and our minds begin to fill that silence with words. We start that chatter because the silence is uncomfortable. But it's in that silence that we find the greatest wisdom. You know, the quote that's attributed to Solomon was that the more words, the less wisdom, and who profits from that? And I think that's something that I've always tried to keep in mind. And you know, there are a lot of folks in the business world who could stand to learn that in their business presentation. You know, when you've got something that's real, when you've got something that's of value. You don't have to throw up all over the client or the prospect with information. Sometimes the most effective way to make your point, the most effective way to bring value to that conversation is by being quiet. And that's the mind shift today. You know, there's it's something that I thought was interesting as I was preparing for this, because it was forcing me to be more mindful of what I say today, and very naturally, kind of organically, this was one of those things that, you know what, there isn't a whole lot to say about this topic, other than just to kind of say, you know, let's bring our attention to those conversations that we have today and going forward, and recognize that there are times when that silence can be the sacred space that we're creating between us and another person. That silence can be the powerful message that we're bringing to another person. It doesn't mean giving somebody the silent treatment. It means allowing that time and that space for silence, for presence, if you will. And I'll put it in the context of the business world, because most of the people that come here for these daily mind shifts are entrepreneurs. But you know, when we're making a presentation, a lot of times I'll ask somebody, hey, you know, if I you know, give you a video to watch, are you going to be able to take time? Absolutely, for sure, to you know, to watch that video. And they say yes, and I say, when are you going to be able to do that? Sometimes that person doesn't respond back and tell me when, because they're waiting for me to give them more information. And the temptation is rich to fill that silence with something else. But it's their turn to talk. And you have to let them feel the uncomfortableness of it being their turn to talk. They have to make a commitment. So I'm quiet. And when I'm sharing something with somebody, I might tell them, hey, you know, we've got this incredible program. And I'm so fortunate, so blessed that the program does blah, 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 whatever the features and benefits are. And, you know, I don't know if this is a good fit for you, but you're going to be able to make that distinction. And so we need to set up a time when you and I can have a conversation at a higher level. And then I shut up, because that's the point in time for that person. First of all, they have to be able to think. They have to be able to consider it. And if I'm chatting a million miles an hour, telling them all the features and benefits, and I'm doing the whole presentation, why would they even need to set up time for us to have another conversation? There's no need for that, because I'm spewing everything out at them right now. And the other side to that is that if I allow that quiet space, they can start thinking in their heads, you know, is this right for me? Is this the time for me? Is this what I've been looking for? You know, and I have to just allow that silence to speak louder than the words. And that's where, you know, somebody once said recently, the problem in the internet age is that we are drowning in information and starved for wisdom, because there's all this information coming at us at 24/7, 24/7. Anytime you turn on the computer, there's information, good and bad information, true and not true information, that's just coming at you full force. But in that information is very little wisdom. You know, in the political climate today, lots of information, very little wisdom. And so it becomes incumbent upon us to take all of this information that we're drowning in and sort it out and find the wisdom that's there to be had. And if there's no wisdom to be had in that deluge of information, we need to get rid of that information. You know, we need to move on. And the only way to find that space is you know, in the moment. So today what we're looking at the possibility that the reason we try to fill those spaces of silence with more words is because of something we're afraid of. Bless you. Something that we're afraid of that maybe, you know, if we're not silent, we're going to lose the prospect. Maybe if we're not silent, that relationship's going to die. Maybe if we're silent. And maybe if we're silent, our point's not going to be taken. And the mind shift today is that we need to speak enough so that our point is made and proven, not that our existence is proven. And so we have to let go of that fear that says it's not comfortable to be silent. We have to let go of that fear that says, if I don't keep on talking, I'm going to lose my point. You know, the idea of a conversation should be to derive value, to derive wisdom from that conversation, whether it's a business conversation, a personal conversation, a relationship conversation, a religious conversation, or spiritual conversation. The idea should be to derive value. And so there are times when you know, with people who matter most in my life, there's times when I'll say, hey, let's get together. And I like to jump on Skype or I use Appear In for one very good reason, because there are times when we get together when we'll talk a little bit in the beginning, and then we just kind of want to just kind of sit in one another's presence. And if that person doesn't live close enough to do that with me in real life, then I can do that virtually by being in front of the camera, and we can just allow that silent moment or two to you know, be filled with the richness of that silence. And there's an exchange, what I call a download of wisdom, that takes place in that silence, in that moment. You know, when we both said what we have to say, and we just kind of have a moment. Where I have a friend online, and his video tagline is, "Can I get a hello there?" And I love that, because it's the tone of his voice, not what he's saying. That's what that silence is all about. It's that. And so we want to have more of those moments in our lives and less of the words, because those moments are rich. Those moments are when our hearts are connecting, not our heads. You know, and that's why, you know, in so many of the spiritual traditions, why there's moments of silence, there's periods of contemplation. It's the opportunity for our hearts to connect with another heart, for that oneness that we talk about on Fridays so often to become part of the everyday experience. And so this coming week, we're going to be moving toward a discussion of letting go. This week we're identifying our fears. We're giving our fears names. You know, naming the fear, identifying it. Next week we're going to talk about how you let it go. Because the truth of the matter, the wisdom in this whole process, is that all those fears that we've given names to, we've created. We've made them up. They're characters in a J.K. Rowling novel. You know, there's Voldemort doesn't really exist. J.K. Rowling created Voldemort. Our fears are our Voldemorts. And so as long as that fear is we're not allowed to say the name of the fear. If we don't name it, we can't get rid of it. We can't release what we haven't identified, what we haven't named, what we haven't taken ownership in. So we're going to name these fears this week, and then next week we're going to let them go. We're going to say these were characters in a fictitious book called Our Lives, and it's time to let go of those characters. There's new characters coming in. There's a whole different story coming in. We're leaving Hogwarts. We're going to the new magical school in the United States, and so there's going to be a whole new cast of characters in our lives starting next week, because we're going to start to replace these periods of frenetic energy, frenetic action. Oh, I got to keep on talking, or I'm going to lose that sale. And we're going to allow that to become this softer space where we just kind of shut up and allow that silence to speak more powerfully about our products and the words. I mean, that's why my friends, that I don't ask people to join my business. I don't go out and say, I really want you to join this business, and here's why, and this is why it's the best company, and this is why I love the comp plan, and this is why. Now, we may have conversations where somebody says, so tell me about, Skinny Body Care. Tell me about your peak performance program. Tell me about whatever. And I'll share with them some of the features and benefits, but then I'll just say, that's, and I'll finish what I have to say, and I'll just allow that silent space to be there, because I'm not here to manipulate anyone. I'm not here to convince anybody that a program is for them. The idea behind communication is to allow that respect and that space for another person to make a decision. So when I've given them the facts, now they have to allow inner wisdom to tell them, this is a good fit for me, this isn't a good fit, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. I have questions, or I don't have any more questions. And if they don't have any more questions, I don't need to keep on talking. And so this is the mind shift for today. And there's nothing really more that I can share about it, because now this is the time when we just let this information wash over us. It's time for me to be silent. So I'm going to open this up to Jen. If you have any ideas that came to your mind, because part of your spiritual path is a contemplative practice. Part of your journey in life is a contemplative practice. Part of your being a mom involves those times when, I would love to hear whether there's been times when, looking back at this through the lens of this mind shift, where maybe it would have been easier to allow some silence in there, to let that other person both have time to make a decision and come to a realization, as well as letting them get a little bit uncomfortable, because in the sales process, that's part of why we're quiet too, because the person needs to get uncomfortable with their financial situation. They need to say, you know what, if I don't do something, then nothing's going to change. And so it's time for me to get a little uncomfortable with my financial situation now, so that it's not still painful in 2 months. So it's not still painful in 6 weeks. And anytime we're going to do anything that's worthwhile, spiritually, physically, financially, it should be very exciting and a little bit scary. We should get a little uncomfortable, or it's not worth pursuing. So my idea and my timing is so perfect, because it just so happened to be when Jen lost her video feed. But if there is something that you want to add, Jennifer, then this is the time, because I have nothing else to say about the topic. It's my notes are done, and this is time when we can open it up for you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can.
I had to vacate the house. It was getting quite loud in there with the 5 kids. I got 4 teenagers and a toddler in there right now, and it's silence would be lovely. But yeah, for me, one of the biggest things, and I know you're a fan of Michelle Hess, I believe her last name is. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things, because in the MLMs, they're telling message everybody, message, text. One thing she says is, if you've noticed that you've typed way more than they have, then you need to just stop. Stop. If you're in the middle of typing, delete it all and just let it sit. Kind of like you pull a roast out of the slow cooker. You got to let it rest for a minute, let it get itself together, because, people, it takes a little bit of time. You don't want to be the guy in Best Buy who, 49 of them coming up to you. You're just looking at a TV. You don't need 49 people bum rushing you with, "Hey, how's it going? This is a great TV." Stop, please. No, just let it rest. Maybe it might take like 24 hours. Go back and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And just leave it at that. Because like, "Oh, hey, yeah, that's right. I did check that message. I wanted to let you know ABC." Today was a prime example in mothering of, trying to know exactly what to say and what not to say. My stepdaughter has joined us for the weekend. Her great-grandmother is passing. We don't always have the best relationship. So today was one of those, I'm going to let you tell me what you need from me, as opposed to my normal, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Is everything okay?" It's, "Hey, kiddo, how's it going? Just let me know if you need anything." And I have to back off. It was one of those, for the first time, I actually did, as you said, I was in the moment. I let everything that's happened for the past 4 years between us, it was back there. And today was today. And right now she's playing on her phone, watching a movie. So that's what she needs. That's what she needs. So that's about all I got. Other than silence would be okay, but then I would probably go a little crazy. So.
And that's not a bad thing when we have to go a little bit crazy with that silence, because we got to find out what it is that's making us uncomfortable. But kudos to you for being able to put this into practical, into really pragmatic practice with your stepdaughter. And yeah, that's sometimes that's the best thing that we can do, especially in those difficult situations, those times of grieving, those times of pain. Is we try to fill the times of somebody else's pain with words, because we don't want to have to be in that uncomfortable space. We don't want to have to feel that pain with them, but we don't have to feel the pain with them. We just have to be present and just say, "Hey, I'm here for you." A family member of mine is going through a really difficult time right now today, and I just reached out to her last night and said, I see everybody commenting and giving you their thoughts and how you can get through this and whatnot. And I just want to let you know I have nothing. I have no advice to give to you other than to be gentle with yourself and to know that there's people out here who care about you. And if you need to talk, I'm here to listen. If you need to listen, I'm here to talk. Whatever you need, I just want you to know I'm here in the moment for you, and I might not have answers. But I can certainly listen and be present to you. So Katrina, I don't know whether you got on late or you were listening, or you have anything that you want to add to the topic of wisdom and silence. But you're more than welcome to jump in, because I'm done.
Well, I did just get on late, so wisdom and silence, yes. It's often I find helpful to just allow people, well, it's always helpful, to allow people to be where they are. And sometimes the most compassionate thing I can do is allow them that and respect it. And sometimes that means that I don't necessarily, it always requires that I release my own agenda. So listening is so important. If I listen when I'm talking with folks, or anybody in particular, and I feel like I want to move perhaps the conversation in a particular direction, but if I listen, then I can get a sense intuitively of whether or not that's appropriate. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes I have to listen and hear that they are not in a place where, whatever it is, whether it's on a personal level or a business level, that I might want to communicate. I can tell often if there's any space for the listening for that. And so sometimes, just allowing people to be as they are is the most compassionate and effective thing I find.
Right on.
And letting go and moving on. You know, if it's a business related conversation, then if there's not any opening, there's no point in forcing the issue, because all that will do is create resistance. And often what I find is if I leave it alone, sometimes the conversation will come back around at some point, and then the listening is there.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'll use that point, if I may, to close us out today. You know, bringing this to, since most of the people who are participating in this program are entrepreneurs, bringing this back to a pragmatic approach to business. What Katrina just shared is so critical, because a lot of times, you know, if we're truly being of service to the marketplace, our agenda doesn't matter. And every one of us will always find ourselves, it just by human nature, you know, either tripping ourselves up and going back to our agenda, because in that period of silence or in our desire to help, our agenda does creep back in. We want people to know what we know. We want them to have what we have, and to find solutions that we found. But what I find more often than not is that we need to remind ourselves every day that we are doing an effective job. See, this is where we're going to release that fear next week, because the reason that our agenda creeps in is because of fear. And you know, the Course in Miracles says, whatever is not love is fear. And I truly believe that that's the case, because whenever somebody isn't receptive to our message, our underlying fear is that we didn't do a good enough job explaining it. So we want to try and drive our agenda home. Let's know today that in any situation, whether it's business or personal, that we are effective communicators, that we've done our job in letting somebody know that something has potential for them, letting somebody know that we found something that has worked for us. And so often, I just had happen this week that somebody with whom I was not able, somebody who's very close to me, very dear to me, with whom I was not able to carve out, excuse me, any time because of our schedules, to have a conversation about a business proposition. And I just said 3 days ago, I said, you know, I've done my job of communicating the value that's here. I've done my job of giving them the resources, and I don't need to get on the phone with them. If this isn't a good time in their lives, it's not an indictment of me, and it's not an indictment of them. It's that it's not a good time in their lives. And I just let the situation go, and the person was getting frustrated because they kept saying, gosh, my schedule is so crazy, and we're never going to get this conversation. And I said, you know what, we'll have the conversation when we have the conversation. The information is there for you. And they just said, you know, you're absolutely right. And I don't need to have the conversation to choose to do this business. So let me go ahead and sign up, and let me go ahead and place my order. And then let's just know that sometime this week, time is going to open up for you, and time is going to open up for me, and we're going to be on the same page. It just so happened that individual today, but because of circumstances, has time. And we spent some time catching up and talking about the business. But if I would have stayed on the spiritual defensive, you know, my message isn't getting heard, my agenda isn't getting promoted, then I would have never been present, like Katrina just said, to recognizing that maybe that time and that moment wasn't the right moment to have the conversation. And we don't have to know why, and they don't have to know why. So just know that silence, that allowing yourselves to move beyond that place where we're drowning in information and dying of thirst for wisdom, that we can allow that silence to become richer, to become fuller, and to just trust in the process. So that's what I'll leave you with today, is that the idea to moving towards success in your life is trusting in the process, but being divorced from the outcomes. So you marry yourself to the process of being of service to the marketplace, marry yourself to the process of whatever your particular business's vision and mission is, marry yourself to your mission statement, but be divorced from the outcome, because the outcome will always be right. We don't have to understand it. We just have to trust in it. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys. Katrina, thank you for your contribution. That was very valuable. Jennifer, I know that you're watching this from a less quiet place right now in the home with teenagers and a little one. Thank you for your contribution as well for making this real, guys. You are what makes this program work. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate your participation. For everybody who's watching on the replay, I appreciate you as well, and look forward to having you join us sometime on the live conversation, Monday through Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Time, Fridays at 1 o'clock Eastern Time for the Mindshift Mastery program. As we end up every day, I want to encourage you guys to stay in the moment. This week, we are identifying fear. We are giving those fears a name. And next week, we're going to talk about how we let them go and get them out of our lives and out of the story so that they're no longer part of the narrative. Stay in the moment. Be grateful for what you've got. That gratitude is going to open the door for the abundance, the healing, and the wisdom that's waiting for you. And always remember, the best is yet to come. We'll talk to you soon.